Hello and welcome to Dateline New Haven on WNHH-FM. I'm Paul Bass, inviting you to look behind the headlines on the stories that make our community tick. Well, one of our favorite guests to have on this program, he's a very substantive individual, Roland Lemar. He's a state representative from New Haven, running for a 7th term. And he came in to tell us what just happened in Hartford and what's going to happen next. Roland Lemar, welcome back to WNHH.
Great to see you, Paul. Happy summer to everyone.
Thank you. We've had the station for 7 years, and one of my favorite days when you were so mad at something somebody was saying on air, Joe Markley, you pulled your car over at a highway exit to call in. So you're always welcome to do that, by the way, although we do mostly emails. So, Roland, you represent the 96th District. It used to be New Haven and Hamden when you first got elected in 2010. I remember at the Playwright, you had a fundraiser with Bruce Morrison.
That's right.
Then it got to be New Haven and East Haven. Now we've had a census-driven redistricting. So now you're just New Haven, downtown, East Rock, Fairhaven, and West Haven. And Worcester Square, I mean. Do you have any regrets leaving East Haven? Was it fun to represent them? And are they going to be okay without you?
It's a very different population. The section of East Haven I represented was the Foxen neighborhood in the north end.
So you didn't have to deal with airport stuff?
I did not have to deal with airport stuff. The section of New Haven I represent is, as you indicated, downtown, East Rock.
So the New Haven, the kind of like liberal.
Yeah, and I have a little bit of the hospital district. I mean, the growth in New Haven itself was more than the state growth rate. So that meant that we could consolidate our districts into New Haven. And
so I think kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
Foxon, is that northern East Haven?
Yes.
So is that like Foxon Park soda and all that kind of stuff?
Exactly, yeah.
What's the identity of Foxon? Is that different from other parts of Fairhaven, East Haven, like the beach parts?
It is. It's, I think, generally wealthier than East Haven is as a whole. It's a lot of newer home development than you'd see in southern East Haven, down by the beach area or downtown. A lot of the homes there were built in the 70s and 80s. A lot of folks who live in my section, the section I represented up there, identified more as being like a North Haven resident or North Branford resident.
And is the politics any different there than the other part of East Haven?
Yes. I would... my opponent would generally defeat me in East Haven, and I would rely on winning by larger margins in New Haven. It's much more conservative, generally.
And Eric Mastriano was on the other week. He was a Republican running against you again. So, Roland, you just finished the session in Hartford. It was the short session. And is it fair to say the first issue to talk about is transportation, because you chair the Transportation Committee, and that's where there's been a lot of action, especially in a non-budget year, correct?
Yeah, transportation and finance issues. Those are the two issues I've focused on in my time in the General Assembly, and I think we had incredible gains this year.
Where did we move the needle? I know electric buses. We're going to move our state fleet and our school bus fleet to electric bus. Is that true?
Yeah, state-run bus fleets like CT Transit, our local school buses. We're going to have supports for school communities who want to move their buses towards electrified. We're going to try to electrify our entire medium and heavy duty vehicle fleets at the state level down to electric vehicles where practicable. And generally, we're going to have rebate programs that are expanded so folks can buy electric vehicles, e-bikes, other...
And e-bikes actually did.
Yeah, e-bikes passed.
Yep.
Yeah.
So what did pass in terms of all that this year? So is CT Transit going all electric in 10 years? Is that right?
Yep, CT Transit.
10 years?
Yes.
And then the school buses, you're not requiring it. You have incentives for the town so that if they want to do it, they can.
And they can't purchase traditional gas vehicles after 2030. So we have a series of subsidies in place to help make the transition, but you will not be allowed to buy a traditional diesel bus after 2030.
And then what about this idea of electrifying our medium and heavy-duty vehicles? And I'm guessing that had to do with public works and construction, correct?
Public works, constructions, transportation, maintenance vehicles, things like that. That's all getting done.
And what got passed on that?
All of that.
When's that happening by?
Oh, that starts happening, I think 2026 is the date where we start having higher threshold requirements of what our purchasing.
So gradual thresholds.
Yeah.
And then in terms of rebates, what passed on that? E-bikes but not cars?
Nope, you can do a rebate if you're purchasing any fully electric vehicle that is under $50,000 MSRP. Like we don't want.
Are there electric cars under $50,000?
There are a few, and there'll be more coming online in the next couple of years. And we don't want to subsidize folks who
Teslas.
Right. Yeah. Frankly, I don't call out individual company, but we don't want to purchase. We don't want to subsidize.
Although,
folks.
will Tesla start coming with Twitter if Musk changes his mind again? Then you get automatic free Twitter subscription.
But and then we also, which is I think first in the country, if we get this operational in the next few months, where we'll be giving subsidies to folks who are purchasing e-bikes. And those are substantial lifestyle
I
changes.
thought it already existed. They had a press conference on New Haven Greens saying that there is a new state program where you can get e-bike subsidies.
So we passed it. It is not up and running yet. That was part of SB4. Also, that press conference on the Green was indicating that there are lending institutions that will help folks who want to finance.
Credit union.
Yeah. And so that was...
So that was a good year. Now, why does it matter, Roland?
Hold on. And this is something, I would come here and do this for 3 hours. There's something in here that no one is paying attention to, and I did it on the House floor, and I'm going to do it with you too. Signalization upgrades. We're putting tens to hundreds of millions of dollars in signalization upgrades.
How much? How many tens of millions?
Oh, I don't remember the exact number. It's a substantial amount of money is going into signalization upgrades across the state of Connecticut.
Meaning traffic lights?
Yes. And I know it's the least sexy sounding thing imaginable, but this is how we're going to really eliminate a lot of point source pollution on like tailpipe emissions, getting people moving more efficiently through a city. Like right now, like you go 50 feet, you stop at one red light, 60 feet, another red light. And just upgrading all of that signalization technology will eliminate tons of carbon, save people time, and move people more slowly through the roadways with more pedestrian safety enhancements.
Meaning that you don't stop as much, you don't speed to get to the next one.
That's right.
Like in New York back in the day in Manhattan, I think it was 37 miles an hour. If you can get in that groove on one of the avenues, you get all the lights.
Yep.
But you can't do that in New Haven because the signalizations are crazy.
That's right. And
like
it's
Whaley,
really
forget
expensive.
It's frustrating.
It's incredibly expensive to upgrade a lot of the signalization
So
technology.
by upgrading, what are we going to do? We're going to make the Whaley lights work?
We have to dig out the trenches. You have to replace the wiring. You have to put in the new sensors and technology. It's expensive work, but it is.
What happens in the end? Are they more coordinated?
They're more coordinated and they're more responsive. So they can either be independently controlled or reset or retimed in a meaningful way. And it's set towards deliberate speeds in a way that's much more relevant.
And is there good data about what hours there's what traffic on a Whaley or a Chapel and that kind of thing?
Yes, there's great data. We've collected a lot of the data for a number of years. There's the Connecticut called CLEAR. There's a clearinghouse at UConn that collects a lot of this data, both accident data, traffic data. DOT has done great work sort of looking at a lot of their state roads as well and determining what kind of enhancements we want there. So there's a lot of great things happening.
So it sounds like you think this is a big deal. It's not getting paid attention to. How is it in the big picture? Is it mostly about climate change?
Yes.
And what do you have a metric that tells you why this is an important part of the picture for climate change?
Yeah, the number one leading indicator for poor health days or the air quality health days that we have in Connecticut is transportation sector related emissions. That's how we know if we're going to have a poor air quality day. And you'll see an increased number of those in Connecticut. You might get alerts on your phone or on your weather apps. You'll see an air quality metric.
That's not more dependent on if it's overcast and muggy?
Oh, that certainly contributes to it. But transportation emissions are the number one.
And you're saying stopping and starting at poorly timed lights is is the biggest reason for that.
And there are 100 factors, right? The one that we can control is transportation emissions, and that I chair transportation. So yes, I'm going to put
one thing I've always enjoyed about talking to you is I love your wonky appreciation for policy. Like how many people talk about signalization? It sounds like you were really psyched about signalization.
I really am. And
was anyone against this? Like we want traffic lights to really stink and get everyone frustrated, banging on their horn and running into each other?
No, they weren't against that component of it. There were folks who didn't want to see us move towards electric vehicles. There were folks who don't like subsidies.
Oh, and it was all one part of one bill.
Yeah, it was.
What was the bill?
SB4. It was a Connecticut Clean Air Act, and we did it as a transportation and environment bill as a joint committee process, and we think we've got.
Well, so it was a good session for you. What about red light cameras? Ever since you've been in Alder, I believe, we've been talking about, you've been up to Hartford asking, if I'm not mistaken. I seem to remember you being in an office in Hartford when you were in Alder with a group of people saying, we want red light cameras that have cameras show people speeding. Some civil libertarians say they worry that, and as a civil libertarian, I never quite got that argument, I got to be honest, because it's not that if you're not doing anything wrong, you have to worry. I just didn't see how that was going to. What is the argument for privacy? Why are people concerned about it?
Yes, we did not pass that this year. There's an increased push. And I think that it's moved from red light cameras more to speed cameras. Red light cameras, there are some issues with that technology. It's not the best one. I think would still...
So is it like falsely... If the technology's wrong, you get falsely charged or something?
Well, it's problematic. People pull up a little bit too far. They take a right at the wrong time. there were issues with it. Like, it's still a practical solution that works almost everywhere it's tried.
So why did it move to speed cameras?
Speed cameras are a little bit easier to implement. There's a more direct correlation between speed and accidents than there are red light running and accidents. Now, red light running also causes a huge number of accidents.
And they're related.
They are related. And what else it does is it shuts down pedestrian traffic in an intersection in a way that I also want to deal with.
And when they teach you, I know one person took a course that when they work for an insurance agent, I think it was number one cause the accidents is someone running that night at the last 5 seconds.
Right. And so we thought by getting to speed, that would be a better way to control intersections, one, get to the problematic behavior. We're having the deadliest year ever on Connecticut roadways, and that's coming off the deadliest year ever on Connecticut roadways. So it's only increasing. We passed a national model Connecticut Vision Zero bill last year that is getting a lot of attention across the country now as we try to refocus our entire DOT towards pedestrian safety.
But you couldn't get the speed cameras.
Couldn't get the speed cameras.
Why?
It is this continued coalition that is, I disagree with, but is well constructed and hard to argue against. You have a lot of my suburban, not necessarily Republican, but suburban counterparts who think that this is just a city attempt to target their residents and get money into downtown New Haven. And then you have civil libertarians who are concerned with camera technology, who owns the data, who controls the data, whether you can sell the data, how long the data can be possessed for, whether or not a government entity can track individuals. And then you have the NAACP, who's been really concerned that what they've seen across the country is communities that don't take this seriously, who aren't thinking about it from the outset about equity and placement of cameras, end up putting all of their cameras in predominantly African American and Latino communities.
And while you don't want to do that, doesn't that make those neighborhoods safer?
I mean, I think that can be true. It can be true. I do.
I mean,
think,
we don't want to do that.
but we don't want to.
But I feel like you're giving the benefit. Right, it's the message.
Yeah.
And the message I want to remind you is that you're listening to Dateline New Haven. State Rep Roland Lemar running for a 7th term. Why are you running for a 7th term?
I think we are in an incredible moment. When I first ran for office in 2010, we talked about the challenges our state was facing with record deficits, mounting long-term debt obligations that we could not conceive of ways to overcome without bold leadership at the time, without talking about progressive tax rates, without seriously cutting back on our supports for communities and schools. I wanted to change that narrative at that point in time. It's been a long time coming. We're at that moment where we're just now passing this past year a child tax credit that we've been talking about for years. We need to make that permanent in the next fiscal cycle. That's the number one reason why I'm running. The earned income tax credit, we finally got to an appropriate level, 41.5% of the federal EITC.
Does that mean you have to earn, you get to, whatever you get for the federal earned income tax credit, you get to add another 41.5% of that total off your state taxes?
That's exactly right. And I want to enshrine that into state operation.
Is it non-enshrined?
I mean, it's a 1-year cycle. It's always up for debate on the following year. And so I want to make
But if it's not taken away, does it remain?
Yes, that's
it doesn't need to be renewed.
But it has gone up and down over the years. Like
Yeah.
it started off at 30, goes down to 20, it's gone down to 18.5, I believe, at some point in time.
And pilot was a big victory this year. You doubled New
That
Haven's
was a
pilot.
huge
But
victory.
isn't that even a better example of something that can be toyed with every year, depending on the financial?
That's right.
So you're running again because you feel like there's been a chance that you've moved the needle financially and you can get it.
We've paid down our debt obligations to the point that we've freed up about $500 million additionally per year that we can make strategic investments in. And if I want to re-envision our transportation system, if I want to get people out of single occupancy vehicles and I want to get folks into buses and onto e-bikes, and I want to improve our pedestrian and cycling ability throughout the state, like I've got to now take this opportunity that we have with federal dollars coming in, changes to our state tax code, and make sure we're making those investments. So making those investments in families and children and in our transportation infrastructure, we have that opportunity for the first time now. And I'm thrilled.
Have you been on an e-bike?
I've been on an e-bike once. I've done more e-scooters.
I don't know why I don't want to go on them. I kind of like going slowly around on my old acoustic.
It takes a little while. It took me about 5 minutes. And I'm heading out to Denver for a transportation conference in a couple weeks, and I'll get a better example to do it over a longer period of time. It took me a few minutes to figure out the technology, and it was a little unnerving at point. I was going a little bit too fast, and then like times when I wanted it was complex, but I'm pretty sure with an additional 20 minutes I could have figured it out. So you should jump on, give yourself 20 minutes.
But is there a reason to?
Yeah, I mean, if you need a mobility assist, like for folks who are either younger or older, who may have health issues, knee issues, they may not be able to carry their personal weight to propel it that well. They may need the e-mobility assist. It is an easier technology. It will get you there faster. And frankly, there are a lot of folks who tell me they don't want to commute to work on bike because they don't want to show up sweaty. Sure, I actually feel that way too. Like, yeah, you're right. Like, I don't want to show up at a meeting after a 7-mile bike ride sometimes.
I ride so slow, it's hard to get sweaty. Roland, Lemar, you're on finance, revenue, and bonding. One issue you've talked about over the years is how much less money percentage in taxes wealthy people pay than middle class and working class people in Connecticut. The poor have the earned income tax credit if they take advantage of it. But the Democratic supermajority has gotten nowhere with Democratic governor to try to have that leveled by, you've always wanted a surcharge marginal rate over 5.99% tax rate. You want to up it 0.5% for people making more than $1 million. All that means you think rich people should pay some kind of percentage closer to what everybody else pays.
That's right.
Why is that getting nowhere, and how would the new data you got this year help?
So we have a tax incidence study that's just being updated for the first time in 7 years. And the data remains relatively similar, which is the lower your average, your annual income, the higher the percentage of that income you pay in taxes, to the point that...
Is that state and local or federal?
That's accumulating for state, local, and federal.
It includes federal?
Yes. It's including all, what your tax incidence rate is.
And what is the number now?
Oh, gosh, I don't know the number.
But they did the study, Department of Revenue Services?
Yes, they did the study, and it indicated exactly what you indicated, that the higher your income levels, the less overall
But you
tax
have a governor, your governor wins.
Refuses.
He says it punishes success if someone in his town of Greenwich has to pay 30% of their income in taxes like someone who's a teacher or a security guard.
I completely disagree with him. I mean, this is a point of contention that I will continue to have with the governor, or continue to have with this mindset that the idea that Connecticut is better off for being as low of a tax state as it is for multimillionaires. We are substantially lower in New York than multimillionaires are in New York City, New Jersey. Other states are close to us. Our tax rate could go up to 7.5. We could create additional equity in our tax structure. Those might be the things that we consider doing. I think we should consider doing them to protect the child tax credit that we passed this year, the earned income tax credit at its current level, and maybe even lower the tax rate for our middle income.
Well, Lemar, your Republican opponent says that you shouldn't be putting so much money in the rainy day fund. You shouldn't be putting so much money in paying down pensions or old pension debt, that you should be giving more money to the average consumer by even more of a tax cut than you've been giving on gas and other ways. Are they right? Is it they say it's raining in Connecticut right now. Is it raining?
No. I think nationally we're all struggling with inflation, rising costs of consumer goods. Those are all real factors that every family at all income levels are dealing with. Just, not as much if you're one of the multimillionaires who are taxed lower than all of our surrounding states. But the irresponsible thing to do at this moment would be to take our surplus and just start issuing tremendous rebate checks without regard to individual personal finances. Yes, we are doing a child tax credit this year with our surplus. Yes, we are expanding the EITC. Yes, we're giving more money to schools.
I guess what sounds to me is that at my age, this used to be what I remember Republicans saying: be responsible. Don't just give away money you get on a good day. Keep it so that you won't have a crisis on another day. Our bond rating went up for the first time in, is it 20 years?
Yeah, the Connecticut
right?
Republican Party has always been somewhat ridiculous when it comes to this. It was former Governor John Roland at the time who was issuing
one-time rebate checks,
$50, while at the same moment we were underfunding our pension obligations, not meeting our required minimum contributions for the year, and watching that deficit balloon.
How much is our surplus now?
We just deposited an additional $3.6 billion to pay off our long-term debt obligations that accumulated for about 70 years. Starting in 2011 was the first time we started making our required annual contribution to pay off our pension funds. We've done it every year since. Over the last few years, we've...
What's our surplus?
Our surplus this past year was, I believe it was $3.9 billion. Mm-hmm. And that, again, went to make sure our rainy day fund is at 15%, of our overall operating budget. That's what our rainy day fund is, and it's statutorily capped at that 15%. It can't go any higher than that, and it's currently at the highest level.
Which is 1.6 billion, is that right?
Yes. And any additional dollars that we collect over that in surplus has to go to pay off our long-term debt obligations, which is those 70 years of Connecticut residents getting public services from the state of Connecticut that they never paid for. We started paying for them again in 2011.
So nationally, it seems like you're feeling pretty good about the Democrats, the legislature. Nationally, the conventional wisdom is the Democrats are about to get creamed. The national elections, definitely losing the House, maybe the Senate. America seems to be siding against the Democratic Party on a lot of major issues. So Democrats are trying to talk about abortion and gun rights, given the Supreme Court decisions where polling goes there. Republicans are trying to talk about inflation and finances. How are you? Do you agree with that conventional wisdom of what the landscape looks like, and how do you see the prospects of either side prevailing?
Yes, I think everyone's reading the same polling data, the same tea leaves, are having the same conversations with the constituents they represent. Folks are. It's an interesting moment in history where I was reading something that there is no parallel for this point in time where net worth of Americans has gone up dramatically.
And the people still have jobs. There's no unemployment going up.
Unemployment rate,
inflation.
that's right.
Yeah.
I mean, you might have the same
it's
thing.
It's weird economics.
That's right. Unemployment is at like historically low levels. Net worths are going up dramatically. Home values are going up dramatically. But people don't feel confident about their futures. And so when you look at other inflationary times and other times of low unemployment and high net growth gains, people generally felt confident and good about where they were. People don't feel good about where they are, despite all of these underlying metrics. And so, that is hesitant. It causes hesitancy, and I think both political parties. I'm like, how do I tap into that, right? If you're just trying to think about how to win an election, but there's something real there that you can have a conversation about. And I think why Democrats are so fearful is because they haven't figured out how to have the conversation about this moment. And Republicans will play to their traditional playbook, which is fear and blame. It's those guys' fault. They'll elect us, and we'll fix it all.
How do you see it playing out?
I think Democrats are in trouble nationally in Congress. I think we lose enough seats to lose the majority. In Connecticut, we're going to be fine, though.
How about the U.S. Senate?
I don't know. Like the Senate, it's a two-seat swing. So it's
I know Georgia's up in the air.
Yeah.
Pennsylvania. Well, the interesting race is if Fetterman can walk again, he'll probably get a good chance of winning.
Yep,
yeah.
that's right.
How about should Biden run again?
I don't know. I'll wait to be seen on Biden. I'll support my president if he runs for re-election, but I think the Democratic Party has a lot of soul searching to do over the next 2 years.
Roland Lemar, thank you so much for coming in for Update. It's always great to have you on WNHH-FM.
Great to be here, and we missed like half of this. I'll have to come back again.
All right, and good luck navigating the traffic lights that aren't fixed yet, but will be soon.
There you go.
On your way home. We're going to take a break, folks. Then we're going to go back with Steve Orozco, who's running for the state legislature, for the state Senate, taking on Martin Looney. We're going to take a break while we set that up, and you can enjoy the Afro-Semitic experience, performing I Wish I Knew How It Would Feel to Be Free from the group CD, A Plea for Peace. This is Paul Bass. Welcome you to Sit Tight on Dateline New Haven and WNHH-FM.